Councilwoman Gray regarding more information on the budget, and then I also spoke with the Minerals Council attorney, Wilson Pipestem. So I just would say overall, the memo that's been forwarded to you that was addressed to myself is a good summary of where they're at. Councilwoman Gray stated that she would continue to provide a document of how they specifically calculated, because that was one of my big questions. Is I realized that, you know, this to be true that's in the memo, but where did they come up with that figure? And she said it was based off of a calculation of other litigation that they've been involved in, and kind of averaged it out, so that I asked her if she could provide that as well. Other than that, it was just a little more in-depth conversation of what this memo states. We also, you know, talked about the constitutional language and protecting the minerals estate, or natural resources and minerals estate, and just overall what they have before them. And I would say at this, you know, at this time, that because we always discuss that, you know, in our support and our constitutional duty to protect, you know, we always kind of like, well, what does that look like? What does that ask of us? And I would say at this time that this is what that looks like. This is how we can support it. She did say that she would forward, you know, a more detailed document of how it was calculated, as I've said, but she would like to possibly get as close to that number as possible. So, that's kind of it in a nutshell. Mr. Pipestem stated that he's available if anyone wants to have a little more conversation, but the question was also asked of the Attorney General the other day, if you'll recall, on the other litigation update matter, and whether they were related or how, and you know, he stated that they have their thing going, so they would have a need on their side as well. So that's about it, I guess. Like I said, he just kind of went over the same information that's on this memo that you all have been provided. So I could try to answer any more questions, but like I said, if, as far as, you know, we always ask how can we support, and what does that look like, that at this time it would be in supporting them in their request. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, any questions?
Yeah, Chair Bighorse, this is Congressman Keene.
Yes, Congressman King.
I guess I'm just wondering, why isn't any of the Minerals Council members on these calls? This is now the second meeting this has happened.
Yes, sir.
Well, sorry.
Go ahead, Madam Speaker.
I mean, I honestly don't know if they were notified that, but I called all three of them right up, so I didn't ask them to specifically come in, because the chairman also directed me to Ms. Gray, which I've stated, if you would like to have her on the phone, we can call her. If you'd like Mr. Pipestem to call in, but I would remind that these conversations should take place in executive session. So other than that, what I'm saying is what they're going to say. So
I understand that. It just seems though, if you want to, you know, obviously if you're asking for an appropriation, it is better to be on the call just for more back and forth. But that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Members?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Madam Speaker.
Yeah, so again, you know, this is the information they provided in speaking with them directly. It's the same information that they provided speaking to them directly as you've been given. You know, I guess if anyone had any additional questions, same as everyone else requests, is that we put them in writing and forward them to them. But otherwise, again, it's the same thing that they're saying in this memo. And so let's see. I mean, they could be made available, but my big question to them was, you know, can you please describe the justification? Because the question is, where will this money come from? And, you know, therefore some things may have to give in order to make this happen. So if anyone would like a little more in-depth information on that, you know, certainly able to do so, ask them those questions. That's the only thing I could suggest.
Members? Okay, if you do have further question, because correct me if I'm wrong, Madam Chair, even if we were to show this reviewed, it would still be sitting like the other bills are where they're at. Correct?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'm sorry, if I may, yes, it would be reviewed. It would be by motion stating that it was reviewed, but it is looking like how it's going to happen is once all committees are completed with all their sections, they will report to them as reviewed to the Congress, and then there will be a motion by Congress for them to move over to the Appropriations Committee at that time to go through where it is we're going to find, you know, money that we need for certain things. And so it would be my suggestion that, you know, unless anyone's just, I mean, whether even if you're against it, you've reviewed it. In my opinion, and there's also time, like I said, I asked Miss Councilwoman Gray the feedback, to provide additional information because this isn't, you know, going necessarily out the door today. So there's still a lot that has to be worked through, but it would be my suggestion that I mean, we have everything there is to review. So other than I do need a moment to check whether or not this is if the budget template is in order. That's really my only question at this point, because how that looks, because they submitted an original budget, and then when an amendment came over that they provided a new budget, it was a strange looking different template. So that would be my question. Whether that's in
Okay,
order.
do we need to get with Trey?
Yeah, that's what I was getting ready to go check with him.
Okay.
Chair Big Horse, this is the clerk.
Yes, Madam Clerk.
I was just going to remind you that this is a standalone bill. This is separate from 2076 that has all the different sections that you're reviewing. This is a completely standalone bill. And you would just postpone it to the call of the chair or whatever to hold it in committee. It's not that you need a motion that it's been reviewed or anything like that because you're not reviewing a section. This is a standalone bill.
Oh, okay.
Right. Thank you, clerk. I forgot that part. I'm getting confused, and that with the same with the villages. So, okay.
Okay, committee. what's your pleasure as far as movement or?
Chairman Walker.
Yes, Congressman Walker.
Well, I'm trying to think through this like everyone else is, and trying to determine the best path. I agree that this is, working together and utilizing the nation's resources to benefit the whole. It's a big request. I don't want to say too much because some of the things I want to say were discussed in special session last week. To me, this request warrants more discussion. How time sensitive is this really? Can a lesser appropriation, would that hopefully suffice for this fiscal year? Those are just questions that I've not heard. I guess with all of that said, as far as what do we do with the bill that's on the table right now, I think it needs to ultimately end up in the Appropriations Committee with the rest of the appropriations request, so we can look at it, in total, all of them. And it's not just because I'm on the Appropriations Committee. Anybody, any member of Congress can join in and participate during those meetings. So to get it from GovOps, not out on the floor, but over to the Appropriations Committee to be reviewed and considered with the other appropriations requests is my preference.
Okay. With that being said, I just want to make sure that we have all of the questions that we need out of GovOps asked and answered. And if there are none, then the chair would entertain movement.
Chair Big Horse.
Yes.
I'm agree with Congressman Walker's comments. That's why I was thinking, but I too was actually thinking that maybe it could, because I assumed it would go back to appropriations, because again, the question is, where is this money going to come from? Then I would suggest the same as I said earlier, but I forgot that it wasn't a section. So I would suggest that it move out of here at the very least. And because there is time to receive the information from Councilwoman Gray on the calculation, and I will commit to following up and getting that from her. And then also, in addition, the conversation of, because she and I did have the conversation of a possible lower amount, but I can have a more detailed discussion with her on that. And if it is so, or just financially it has to be a lower amount, then we can take care of that in appropriations or on the floor of Congress.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can I get a follow-up, Chairman?
Yes, Congressman Walker.
Well, kind of along those same lines, and going back to what Congressman Keene has mentioned the last two meetings, again, big request. These are big picture decisions. To me, I would like to have an executive session where we can talk to Wilson and the Attorney General and the chairman of the Minerals Council and or Councilwoman Gray, if she's kind of out leading this charge. I feel like we need that to happen. It's a big deal.
Chairman.
And a large request.
Chairman.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Congressman Walker. Yes, Madam Speaker.
Okay. Well, I guess I'm also thinking of it from a standpoint of the Attorney General did touch on some of this in an update last week. So I guess that's where I'm coming from. And also I just spoke to Mr. Pipestem, and he said about as much as what you're reading. However, if it would make everyone more comfortable, then, as I stated at the beginning of the meeting, we have an executive session on the agenda, and I asked Mr. Pipestem if he would be available. So, I mean, with that, I would go ahead and to follow up with Congressman Keene's question, I don't think that they were invited or told, whatever word you want to use, to attend. I would say that's why. But I bet we could call them right now and ask them if they would talk to us, and they would. So with that, you have 40 minutes left. I would get on an executive session call right now.
Chair would entertain a motion.
Chair Big Horse,
Congresswoman Shaw.
motion to enter into executive session to discuss confidential legal matters.
We have a motion to enter into executive session. Do we have a second?
Second.
Chair,
Congressman Maker.
I would second that, but also include who the parties to be invited.
Yes, sir. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Hearing none, we are in executive session. Madam Clerk, if you will